Superman has long been a favorite American superhero. His ability to bend steel with his bare hands is interesting because Soviet leader Joseph Stalin's name means steel in Russian. But what would happen if Superman became a Soviet weapon and propaganda tool in the Cold War? How would dialogue affect an American audience's perceptions of him and his morality within comic book culture? Throughout Red Sun Rising, dialogue creates evolving audience perceptions in a nature versus nurture framework of Superman's morality. The stages of evolving perceptions are initial fear and tension, restored trust, and finally, a looming doubt. The first perception is fear because it is not yet known whether Superman's communist upbringing will corrupt his good nature. Millar, the author, has written for an audience already familiar with the premise of his comic, so dramatic irony is employed in the dialogue to create a sense of suspense. Readers will hope that the costume individual is not Superman, but also recognize the inevitability of the predicament, which creates tension, as evidenced by the similarity the speech balloons bear to lightning. Because Superman is such a well-known character, Millar must create a separation between the original Superman and the alternative reality one so that the audience's past perceptions do not bleed into the present. This is established with dialogue which points out the trivial nature of Superman's origins. When confronted with this triviality, the audience feels uncomfortable. The audience is already disturbed by the thought of Lois being married to Lex Luthor, but when Lois corrects herself, it seems that she can subconsciously perceive something fundamentally amiss in her relationship, which only increases the audience's uneasy feeling. Lois's repetition of her married name and its bold typing face carry a tone of absoluteness, preventing the reader from escaping the reality of Superman's character without Lois laying by his side. While previous dialogue has focused on abstract and growing fear of Superman, dialogue shifts to show him becoming a tangible threat. Dialogue acts like a sensationalized news story in order to capture attention and make Superman comparable to a big brother figure, once again increasing the disquietude in audience perceptions. Sometimes dialogue matters because of the identity of its speaker more so than what is being said, as when Martha makes her comments on Superman. Martha is the American Superman's mother, so the inclusion of her in a speaking role serves to create a sense of discord in the alternative universe and again remind the audience to keep their past perceptions from interfering with the present. At this point, dialogue begins to restore the viewer's faith in Superman's innate goodness. What Lois's boss tells her is ironic because if Superman were an American citizen, American news companies would be fighting for the opportunity to publish the same nationalist stories about Superman, implying that a Soviet Superman might not be that different from an American one. Besides occurring between characters, a type of dialogue also exists between Superman and the comic reader. When Superman reveals to the reader that he holds himself to high moral standards, he challenges the previous perception of being a threat. The reader does not have to believe Superman, but his calm and self-assured tone makes it difficult not to believe him. Dialogue which decreases America's moral credibility only makes a Soviet Superman look better. Although American Agent Olsen clearly vocalizes doubts about Luthor's government-funded plan, his complaints are an emotionless afterthought, more of a callous attack on Luthor's logic and intellect than an ethical objection to putting American lives in jeopardy. It is difficult to trust someone who has unchecked powers, but the dialogue that Superman uses when greeting an old acquaintance makes him seem like an average, harmless human being. He uses a casual greeting and carries a conversation with a relaxed tone and pace. While unable to see the figures in the panels, one still imagines Superman to be smiling as he speaks. Bizarro, a primitive Superman clone, is the only tangible example of an American Superman in this reality, so his dialogue is subtly interpreted by the audience as a reflection on Superman's nature. Because Bizarro chooses to spend his final moments of altruism talking about what a pleasure it is to meet the world, it is implied that Superman's good nature is independent from his nurture, increasing audience trust. Diana's comment may just be a reflection of Superman's appeal to her, but it is also symbolic. We tend to associate height with positive character traits such as power. The rich are part of the upper classes. An upright man is fair and honest. To stand tall is to act with confidence. Diana's line creates a subconscious positive view of Superman in the audience. Superman's dialogue lends him even more integrity in the view of an American audience. Although devoted to the Soviet state, his efforts to keep his personal freedoms out of state control reveal ties to American values. He is so pure that he despises politics. When discussing his principles, his tone is determined and final, which gives him a strong, attractive character. Dialogue turns perceptions to their final stage, doubt of Superman's character. This doubt is not concrete, but rather a barely conscious suggestion. For instance, when Wonder Woman's mother discusses Stalin's crimes openly, the audience must wonder why Superman can ally himself with a man whose abuses of human rights are so well known. Peter's dialogue brings an unnoticed argument about Superman's morality to the attention of the audience. While others make tough decisions to reach a high status, Superman's powers allow him greater freedom of choice. If Superman did not have powers, he might make those same decisions. The inability of dialogue to definitively answer this argument negatively impacts perceptions of Superman's morality. Although literally referring to Stalin's death, dialogue also refers to the death of a Superman who was once adamantly apolitical, foreshadowing Superman's willingness to fill the leftover power vacuum despite anti-political principles. His quickness to compromise his own moral standards makes him an untrustworthy figure to the viewer. Due to the building doubt, Superman's statement of good intentions are not a sufficient justification for his rise to power. The audience knows that having good intentions is not equivalent to being an effective leader or avoiding the attractions of power, but Superman completely ignores these possibilities. Because his dialogue lacks additional explanations, Superman's character erodes further. While vocally complaining about the inefficiencies of the Soviet system only moments before, the citizens gathered in the panels raised no objection in dialogue to another authoritarian leader. Even though Superman is a force for good, with the apparent lack of democracy, the American audience will still perceive an alarming mood, which bleeds onto Superman's integrity. Dialogue has created a constantly developing narrative of Superman's morality, which explains the shifting audience perceptions, from fear to trust and finally doubt. Overall, nature has won over nurture because dialogue shows that Superman, even as a Soviet citizen, will retain his inherent goodness. However, the matter is not yet fully settled, as final dialogue implies that Superman may soon lose that goodness as a result of the system he is a part of.